Hello and welcome to the two-man Power Trip Wrestling. I'm your host, JP John Paz. With me today, very special guest, former WCW superstar Sergeant Craig, the Pitbull, Craig Pitman. Welcome in, sir. How you doing?
Arrgh! How are you doing? I'm doing fine, John.
Doing
Very
very
fine.
good. Very good.
Yeah.
What's going on in your world? What have you been up to?
Wow. I've heard that a lot of people have been asking about me, about
Yeah.
what I've been up to after the arena of professional wrestling. Um, I've been up to a lot, actually. Um, I dwelled into the world of safety and security, which I've done all my life. I'm a retired sheriff deputy out of Tampa, Florida. I was a special security deputy where I dealt with high profile situations and many stories there. And after that, I retired and went into another career with the Marriott organization and safety and security. And currently, I'm second in command here at Hilton Head, South Carolina, at the Marriott Beach Club here. And I've been doing a lot in that world. So that's what I've been doing in regards. But my former life, as you know, as a professional wrestler, was a very interesting and compelling life. And I have a lot to talk about, but I'll
Yeah.
let you ask the questions.
Yeah, definitely. So anything wrestling related recently or no, not really? You haven't really done anything as far as wrestling is concerned.
Well, no. After the professional wrestling career, I officially retired. But after I was with World Championship Wrestling, I went into an organization, Mid Atlantic Wrestling, and we had a contract that we were traveling all over the world for the military and performing shows out there in places like. Uh, Afghanistan and other places like that, so forth. But I retired from that element of wrestling at the time. But very, I was very compassionate about serving the military aspect of this, being coming from that environment. So the thing that stopped the Mid Atlantic Wrestling program was 911. And just before 911, I was out there. I was doing tours, and the military was loving those tours, and we had a lot of fun. But what stopped it was 911. We lost the contract for the military Mid Atlantic Wrestling environment there. But that's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And since then, I haven't done much in the wrestling aspect of things, but I'll let you
Yeah.
take it
So
from there.
originally, how did you kind of get into wrestling? Obviously, I know you had a background just as far as the Marine Corps, but how did you get into pro wrestling? It seems like a crazy world to jump into.
I love what you just asked me because the fact was I was an amateur wrestler for a long time. I was in just before high school, in junior high school, I started wrestling, and I wasn't very good at it. I actually, as a matter of fact, for 3 years, I lost every single match I could lose. And another
Oh,
coach from other teams would say, "Hey, if we want to win, we can get some points by just putting somebody against this guy."
right, right.
And
Yeah.
but after about my junior year, it started to pick up, and I excelled in wrestling, and that was a it was a impetus and a strong point for me after my junior year. I finally won some matches, and then I went on to win the state championship. Then I went into college. I got a scholarship in college to Kentucky, University of Kentucky, I also went to the University of Oklahoma, Oklahoma State University, and I had a scholarship there also. Um, but Marine Corps really uh, gave me my impetus to continue wrestling. They had a full-fledged wrestling program. We won several national titles, and I was one of the premier wrestlers for the Marine Corps, as well as Greg Gibson, who was my training partner. And I won several world championships in the CISM military world championships, and I had some records there. I went unscored on in 1982 in both world championships, freestyle and Greco-Roman, and that was a big thing. So after the military, I retired from the military and went into pro wrestling, and it was Greg Gagne who got me involved. He was with WCW in the main office at World Championship Wrestling, and I knew his father, of course, in Minnesota there, and they got me involved in the wrestling. And I said I would never do this pro stuff. That's not
Yeah.
real. That's not. It was like that, but I really did enjoy it after I got involved with the power plant down in Georgia, and the guys there were they were a little concerned about me because I was a real wrestler. I was doing my thing, and they didn't know if I fit in this world, and they didn't know what to really do with me. But I did have a knack for it, and I had to really develop myself in that perspective. I had to create my own persona, my own character, and so forth. So that's how that all started. But yeah.
So when you get there, right? Who's at the power plant? Who's training you? Is it Jody Hamilton? Is it
Yes.
Sarge or Sergeant Budley Parker?
Yes, it was Jody Hamilton. It was Sarge. Pistol Pez Watley. I don't know if you remember that
Yeah.
name.
Oh yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. Pistol Pez Watley was he was a good friend. When I got to World Championship Wrestling, I trained at the power plant, and when I got there, I was in the military. I had left the military, and I retired. So I left all my money with my family, and I got there to Atlanta, and I really didn't have enough money to really support myself there. So I actually lived in the gym when I went there.
Wow.
I lived out of a closet in the gym,
Damn.
and we trained all day. And after the training all day, I would actually jump up in the ring, and after they closed the gym down, and sleep in the sweaty ring.
Wow.
And
That's crazy.
yeah, yeah, that's how I lived. And at the time, a lot of the big names were in the camp with me. There were several, big names there, but I excelled with that, and I went on to, become one of their stars. So that's how that all happened. Diamond Dallas Page, he was there
Yep.
at the time. Yeah, remember Diamond Dallas Page? Ice Train. I don't know if many
Yeah.
people know that name. Remember Ice Train?
Yep.
Yeah, those guys were in the camp with me when I started. Yes.
When you look at that, there's so many stories, and they even did a documentary about the power plant about how grueling it was and how tough it was and the training. Did you think that, or because of your military background, you're like, oh, this is a cakewalk, compared to what I've done? Like, what did you think? Because I know so many people quit and just, didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
They said it was too tough.
Yes. It was a very grueling camp. And I've been through some grueling camps in Olympic style wrestling, and they were grueling. But this camp was competitive to that level of wrestling, as far as doing 1,000 Hindu squats a day and then running the ropes. And I was black and blue under the armpits there from hitting those ropes. Hitting those cable ropes. That was entirely a different thing for me and a different experience to have to do all of that stuff. But I was tough. I got through it, but it's nothing to joke at. There was, I don't know if you remember Refrigerator Perry
Yeah.
out of, football player. He was coming through and he wanted to do the same thing I was doing. And he came through the camp and he got there and he had a little entourage with him and his wife with him and everything. And he came in and he went through the same training process that we went through. And I'll tell you what, he came in and he left puking in a bucket.
I would imagine. Oh my God, all that running and stuff. Oof.
Yeah. So that's my story about refrigerator.
Yeah, those big guys. I remember playing football when those big guys, man, when we have to do conditioning, they don't do too
Yeah.
well, you know? Yeah.
No, they don't. They don't. Yeah. So, and I've watched a lot of guys come out of the power plant just knowing that it was tough. It was a tough training. They used to play a joke on the guys because I was a shooter, a real
Yep.
wrestler. I would go out and play janitor while they were going through the training camp. And those guys would play a joke. They would get in the ring and say, I guess you can't even beat the janitor here. And they would get me in the ring. And I would beat up on the guys, oh my God, even the janitor's tough around here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it was a lot of fun going through the power plant and all of those times. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Did they know your background as far as like the trainers? Did they know that? Like, hey, this guy, he's a bit of a shooter. Hey, this guy's got a Greco-Roman background. This guy's been an Olympic wrestler. Did they know all that when they have you, or they just treat everybody just like they were like a rookie that knows nothing?
Well, some of them treated it like that, but the ones who did know my background didn't believe my background. You
Hmm.
know, I don't know why, but they didn't believe my background. So they tested those facts, and I could tell you several of the large name wrestlers that were in the WCW at the time that tested me and found out, hey, he's the real deal. There were several, even the Giant. The Giant was in camp, and Diamond Dallas Page. Those guys, they learned. But I was at one of our filming sessions down in Atlanta, in the middle of Atlanta. We used to film at a center stage.
Yep.
And yeah, we were down there in the dressing room, and Sting, all the big names, Ric Flair, all the guys were in the room, and Big Vader. You remember Vader?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was sitting on one of the tables there, and Vader comes over and he just bear hugs me. One of those deals, and I kindly submitted him and put him out of his misery. And everybody was really awed. And Sting was sitting in front of me at the time. And they were like really amazed that it was pretty easy for me to do this kind of thing. And that was really interesting to them. But it wasn't interesting to me because I've been in this world and I wrestled the real deal. I've been there in the world championships and so forth. So it was interesting, and it was hard to get along because they didn't understand my world, But that's the way it was.
Right. So like you don't shoot on the shooter, you know what I mean? Like you got to be careful with guys that can shoot. Don't fool
Yeah,
around. Yeah.
yeah. You don't fool around with those guys. Yeah, I remember some of the guys that came along. We call them the job guys, but when we were filming at center stage and put me in a match with one of these guys, and every once in a while they would want to try to show out, and then I would have to do my thing in the ring, and then they come in the back and complain,
Right. This guy hurt me or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, he hurt me, or he did this and he did that. And Jody Hamilton would just shake his head because I think that Jody really respected the fact that I was who I was, and he liked the way I handled things. So that was interesting.
How was Vader after that? Was he cool with you after that?
Yeah, he had to be.
Hmm.
But yeah, he was cool with that, and we had no problems after that. No, no, not a single problem, you know. And several other wrestlers the same way. You know, they test you out, and then they figure out, okay, okay, I get it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't mess with this guy. So how long were
yeah.
you training at the power plant for? Like how long were you there as far as like were you there for a couple of years or like how long were you training power plant?
I would say about a year and a half. I was at the power plant, and then they did decide to do something with me, so they brought me down. At the time, we were filming the at the Disney World. We were filming the Saturday morning shows. We would go down and we would tape about 3 months worth of shows there and leave. But that's when they gave me my break, and they didn't really know what to do with me. So I created my own character. I was a Marine and I was a
Right.
wrestler. So that's what I created. And it worked out real well. My first matches at Disney World, uh, Ric Flair was booking at the time. And I'll never forget the first match that I had out there. It was so successful, especially with the youth. They really liked the character, you know. And I was finishing up the match, and I came in the back there, and Ric Flair was running up the tunnel to me. That was great, kid. That was great, kid. You're on contract, you know. And that was a really nice moment for
Yeah, that's
me.
awesome.
And yeah, so that's how it all started.
So
Yes.
technically speaking, you could be training at the power plant and not be under contract officially?
Yes. Well, we were under a training contract at the power plant. And so, but that was a whole different scenario from being under the, the other contracts, the
Yeah, the
bigger
real deal.
contracts.
Yep.
Yeah, the real deal contracts. It was a training contract, and then going from the training contract to the bigger real deal contract. That's how that worked out.
So you must
Mhm.
like Ric Flair then. I mean, if he's booking and
Oh
he
yeah, I
likes you,
love
right? He
Rick.
gives you a contract, right?
Man, yeah, Ric Flair's the bomb, man. I love that guy. You know, he used to actually, when his son was wrestling in high school, he brought me in a couple of times into Charlotte, North Carolina, put me up in a hotel that I would go down and train with his sons and teach them, the other aspects of wrestling, the amateur aspects of wrestling. And so we had a good relationship. And he would take me out for Chinese and give me hot and sour soup. And
Hmm.
so it was kind of a great deal. Yeah. But Rick and I are friends. Yeah.
He loves those like shooter guys. Like if like you're a real shooter or if you're like a pro football player, he loves those like legit tough guys. I noticed,
He
Flair.
sure did. Yeah. He sure did. Yeah. Rick's a good man. And I tell you what, he deserves all of the accolades that he gets in the wrestling world because he was the bomb. He was the man. It says you can go in the ring and wrestle Rick, and you could be a broomstick, and he'd make you look good. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So when you first got there, right? Did you know Ric Flair? Like, were you a fan at all? Were you like aware of who he was and the legend of Flair?
Yes, I was aware of who he was, and when I first got to WCW, I was starstruck just like anybody else. The Ric Flairs, and I went out on tour with Ricky Steamboat. If you remember, Ricky Steamboat was there at the time, and I'll tell you what, man, I was starstruck. You know, going out with these guys, these kind of guys, it was really interesting to see the same guys that I used to watch on TV.
Yeah,
And here I
definitely.
am in that world. It was really interesting to be a part of that.
So you were a fan growing
Mhm.
up. That's awesome. So I guess you were more of like an NWA fan growing up, like a fan of like Southern wrestling.
Yes, well, more so the WWF. when
Oh,
it
okay.
was at the time. I watched a lot of the. As a matter of fact, my favorite wrestler was George the Animal Steel, and I always wanted to be like George the Animal Steel. He was the bomb, biting the
Yeah,
turnbuckles and doing what he did. And so he was one of my big fans at the time. Yes.
that's great. George the Animal Steel, what an absolute legend in the business. When you think of wrestling, back then, I mean, he's kind of one of those just old time classic pro wrestlers. You know what I mean? Just love that.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Yeah. Yeah. And there were several other names in there. And of course, the giant, the big giant there. And most of them were the WWF wrestlers that I really enjoyed to watch and so forth.
So when you're in WCW, like you said, with your Sergeant Craig Pitbull Pittman, you make that up and you say, I'm going to be the villain, I'm going to be the heel drill sergeant. That's all you coming up with that character?
No, I came up with the character, but they decided to make me a heel.
Okay.
And I was under as I began to learn and understand about being a heel and being who I was from the power plant and so forth. I guess I did a good job at it, but I wasn't believable because when people saw me in public, I was the total opposite of what this world was. I'm really an introverted person and so forth. And so people would see me in a Walmart or a Target or whatever, and it would be like, you know what, that looks like Sergeant Pitbull Pittman, but that's not him. He's not crazy like that guy on TV.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was real interesting, So there's a dichotomy there. It was this guy versus this guy. It was either Pitbull or Craig Pittman.
Right.
That's the way. Yeah, yeah.
Did you
Mhm.
like playing the heel though? Did you like that they're making you the evil drill sergeant?
Actually, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I had fun with it because although I was a heel, I was a kind of a nice heel. you know, I call you maggot. You're a maggot. You're
Yes.
undisciplined maggots. You're sitting in the seats there, the couch potatoes. And so forth. But people enjoyed that. The kids especially, they enjoyed that. Drop down and give me 20 push-ups, undisciplined one.
Yep.
So yes, yes. But I enjoyed that character. Yes,
Did you draw from real life? Did you draw from maybe some drill sergeants you had?
yes. I can. I was definitely. I was a real Marine, and I've done many things as a Marine. I've done many things after the fact. After being a Marine, I just retired from the sheriff's office in Tampa, Florida, and I was a special security deputy there. You guys call that kind of work SWAT, and so
Yeah.
I handled a lot of high profile things and so forth. So but I draw on that because that was me all my life. That was me. I was always into security. I was always into protecting. I was always into the nature of things like that. So yes.
So that character, like obviously very memorable, right? I mean, you're such Craig Pitbull Pittman. Did they make any promises to you, like, "Hey, we're going to do this with you, with that"? Because you always say that from wrestlers, like, "Oh, they tell me I'm going to be world champion or fighting the world champion." Like, did they make promises to you or no?
I did have some back behind the closed door promises. Didn't pan out like that, but and there were several large names that said, "Hey, we're going to have a good career together," and so forth. And one of the largest names in wrestling said that to me, but it didn't pan out that way. But I'm still appreciative of being able to have performed and did what I did, and I was very secure in my manhood.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I understand, but yes, there were some promises made. Yes. Mhm.
Was it a tough transition going from the real world of amateur wrestling and Greco-Roman to pro wrestling, where you got to take care of the other guy, you got to work with them? I mean, was that a hard transition for you?
I'm glad you asked that question. Yes, it was a hard transition for me. The fact was, um, in the amateur ranks, I was at the top of my game. You know, I was top in the nation. I was top in the military world. I won the world championships 5 times, and I went to the world championships 6 times, and I won 5 of them. I have one silver medal in there. And 1982 in Caracas, Venezuela, I went through the world championships unscored on in both world championships, Greco-Roman and freestyle. That wasn't done before. I was the first American to win both styles. So a guy like that who's doing those kind of things, yes, it is hard to come into this world and be told, "Hey, you're gonna do this and that, and you're gonna lose."
Right.
you know, yeah. So but I adjusted because I realized, this, for the most part, it's is an entertainment world, and we have to do what we do to draw folks in, and get the tickets in there and so forth. I understand that. So, but it was hard, to adjust to. But I did adjust. I had to feed the family too.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So I did adjust. But I'll tell you who's doing a really good job at it is Kurt Angle. He comes from my world, and Brock Lesnar. Yeah, he came from my world. That they both did very well, and probably a lot better at it than I did. You know, from that aspect, going to the WWE or WWF to WWE, those guys did a little better at it. But I was right there, and I think I pioneered that at WCW. So, yes.
Definitely. You get a real life wrestler, real life shooter, and you put him in that world. Any
Yeah.
sort of relationship with Eric Bischoff? Was he the one that officially signed you? I know obviously it's Flair, but was Bischoff the one that was in charge at that point?
Yes. Eric Bischoff was in charge. And yes, I sat in his office in Atlanta at CNN Center, and he was the one who signed me on. Yes, yes, it was. Yes.
How was your relationship with Eric?
Um, I'm not sure. Yeah. Eric was he was fine with me in the beginning, but there was times where we were at different venues and so forth, and we'd walk down the hall and he wouldn't even acknowledge me, so yeah, but I believe in the beginning that everything was fine there, and I believe that WCW didn't really know what to do with a guy like me, and that's how I had to invent myself and create what I did along the lines of pro wrestling. I had to create what I did, so that was interesting there.
When you look at it too, when you're coming along, I know eventually wrestling would get like shooters in there, like Shamrock would come in, like they'd have like different guys come in. I know throughout the years there was always different guys, but I felt like in the mid '90s and late '90s they started kind of going towards a shooter as UFC was getting more popular. Did you
Yeah.
feel like maybe it was too early, or was it like, oh man, if it was different timing, it would have worked out better, just as far as your like career, as far as being a shooter coming in and then being able to play off that?
Yes, I believe that I helped pioneer what was going on there. I was one of the few wrestlers starting in the beginning. Myself and a good friend of mine, Jan Severin, he'd come from my world. If you remember Dan Severin,
Oh yeah.
yes, WWF, uh, guys like him, myself, and then Kurt Angle coming along. Those guys are on my level Olympic style wrestling,
Yeah.
so forth. But those guys came along, and I believe I helped pioneer that because I was there and doing the thing. And even Mark Henry, who wasn't a wrestler, but he was, a big, strong
Olympian.
guy, but
Yep.
yeah, Olympian and so forth. He came along and helped to bring value to the wrestling world and the pro wrestling world in that aspect. Yeah, and I admire those guys, and I'm glad and I'm happy that they went on to do what they did. I was glad to even be a part of that.
I also feel like one of the first guys to really start using the code red, if you will, the arm submission, right? Is that something that you kind of took from like obviously the MMA world or the submission grappling world and used it? Because I was like, man, the code red, this move, this is so, I know as a kid, like this is so dangerous, just break this guy's arm. But obviously
Yeah,
that's it's a really great hold for submission grappling.
yeah. It was actually I created it. It was an actual real move. In the amateur world, I was one of the few wrestlers that was on the world level in three styles of wrestling: freestyle, Greco-Roman, and Sambo, which is submission wrestling. It's a Russian invented sport that was submission wrestling. And I was tops in the world in all three styles. And it was that where I created Code Red was a legitimate arm submission, armbar submission hold. And from there, I believe that was a good move for the pro wrestling style, WCW, and I didn't know it was going to get over that big.
Yeah,
But I was just doing my thing. It was kind of interesting that. But there was one more move. I don't know if you remember the Pitbull headbutt, where I would
oh
throw
yeah,
people into the ring and they come out, and then like kind of submarine dive into their gut. That
yes,
was one of the most dangerous moves in wrestling. From the neck, and
yeah,
I'll tell you, it was dangerous because I'm paying for it right now.
right. Yeah, firsthand. Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah. Throwing guys out and then coming full force into their gut. And I'll tell you a little something about that move. Um, when I was leaving WCW, uh, it was at Disney World. We were at one of the events there where we were filming the Saturday morning show, and they brought this guy up to me and said, "Hey, can you do something with this kid? Show him, some stuff." And I did. I showed him the Pitbull headbutt, and he was a football player. And I said, "If you put this out to the side, it'll be more like a tackle." You know who that guy was?
possibly
Goldberg.
Goldberg. I was gonna say possibly Goldberg. Okay, nice,
Yeah,
nice.
I don't know if he'll admit that, but that's what happened. That was truthfully what happened with that. I showed him this move, and he started using that, and it became the spare.
Yeah,
But if you look at the spare, it was nothing more than the pit bull headbutt, but he put his head out to the side. You
right. Yeah,
know.
definitely. I just
Yeah.
always loved. I just always loved the code red. I feel like a lot of people copied the code red. The submission,
Yes.
obviously, eventually.
Yes. They sure did, and it's okay. It's a prideful sport, and I understand, but there's a lot of compliment in it because they were, doing these things that I created, you know. But
Yeah.
that's okay. Yeah.
What was your first feud? Was it Jim Duggan? I know they were kind of giving you and Hacksaw a feud, and you guys were wrestling quite often. Was Jim Duggan basically the first major feud you had when you were in WCW? I know the Great American
The
Bash pay per view you guys had together.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a feud, but the first feud I really had was a character that I created. I actually created the whole scenario of I don't know if you remember Cobra.
Oh yeah, I just talked to him recently, Jeff Farmer. Yep,
Yep.
the fake
Yeah.
Sting, if you will.
Well,
Yes, yes,
yes, I created that whole scenario where Cobra I was supposed to be uh, related to him in the aspect of the military. He was the CIA portion, and I was the military portion, and we were going on operations together. But
Yes.
on this particular operation, I left him to die, and he came back into pro wrestling to take revenge on that. And well, that was created. That storyline was created, and it was created by me. But so he was. When I would wrestle in the matches, he would. I was about to win a match, and he would come from underneath the ring and come in the ring and hit me, and then I would lose the match and so forth. We did that for a month, and building up to the pay-per-view, a fall brawl up in Asheville.
Yep.
And the whole deal was I repelled out of the ceiling. I don't know if you remember this fall brawl,
Yes.
but I
Yes.
repelled out of this. That was my whole idea. I was a real Marine, and I really knew how to repel and do all of this stuff. So they went with it. And I repelled out of the ceiling in the arena in fall brawl and snuck in the ring to attack him. I had a diversion there. I had a little private there who was, was a diversion for me, so that when I repelled out of the ceiling, he didn't see me coming. So that's how all of that happened, and really that was all my idea, and it really got over. And I think that the match wasn't that great though, because we didn't work out all the details as far as the match was concerned, but the idea was great, you know. So
Yeah.
that was yeah.
And that was interesting, that feud too, because it was like, who is this guy Cobra? And then you find out, like, you kind of left him to die, and he's somebody from your past. So it was an
Yes.
interesting way to introduce a character for sure.
Yes, yes, yeah, and I really enjoyed it, but I took a lot of personal credit in the storyline because people were interested in that kind of thing. I don't think they did enough with it, but that's okay. It was still a good thing, and I really enjoy the fans, and to this day. I'm not as big as I used to be. I used to be 286 pounds, and to this day, a few years ago, I got a little sick, but I got down to about 140 pounds. But now I'm about 200 pounds again. And people, they recognize the pit bull, but they have to think about it because I wasn't as big as I used to be, you know. But to this day, I really, really appreciate the fans, and they still appreciate when they come up to me. They still appreciate the work that was done at WCW with me. So I'm really thankful and grateful for that.
Yeah, when you look at it, right, that era of wrestling, it's so memorable. And obviously, when the Monday Night War start, when Nitro starts, and Raw starts, it really starts to ramp up, and the eyeballs get back on wrestling. It kind of petered out for a little bit of period of time after the Hogan era actually, exploded. Kind of peters off.
Right.
Hogan ends up in WCW. Monday Night Wars. It starts getting hot again, right? I mean, you're kind of right in the thick of it.
Yes. Yeah, I was in the thick of it. As a matter of fact, if you remember Monday Night Nitro,
Oh yeah.
I was on the very first Monday Night Nitro. We did it in Minnesota in the Mall of America. And as a matter of fact, Hulk Hogan was opening a restaurant in the Mall of America at the time, and they coordinated that with the event that we had that night. And I wrestled Kurosawa. I don't know if you remember the Japanese wrester.
Oh yeah.
And I,
Yeah.
yeah, in the Mall of America, and that was a big deal. So I was on that very first Monday Night Nitro, and we were blowing the ratings up as far as Monday Night Nitro versus Raw, and that was an interesting thing there. But I was proud to be a part of all of that. That was incredible stuff there.
Man,
Hmm.
changed the business to think about it. I mean,
Yes.
WWF is king of the hill. WCW comes, they do Nitro, they kill him basically for 2 years in a row. They destroyed him. So, obviously Hogan played a big part in that, and even like you mentioned,
Yes.
Mania that
Yes.
great restaurant. But yeah, obviously Hogan played a major role in helping beat WWF for all the period of time.
Oh, big time, big time. Hogan is the name. Other than Ric Flair, Hogan, those guys. Then there was Macho Man, and so forth. Those guys are incredible. But Hogan, he deserves that. He's was a big part of what wrestling is in the aspects of the pro ranks. So yeah, I really appreciate them.
Any sort of relationship with the Hulkster at that point, or no? He kind of does his own thing.
He did his own thing. We've had a talk, but or two, but he was more. He did his own thing there. He was in his own world.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's cool. Yeah.
How about the Stinger? Any sort of relationship with Sting?
Yeah, I've wrestled him a few times, and I knew that the Stinger existed, of course, and he was in that same element at the time. He was what we call the franchise boy at WCW. So, but Spring was tight. I mean, Sting was tight. He was definitely one of those guys, like Ric Flair and Hogan, but he was the WCW franchise boy. He was that person, you know.
Yep. When
Mhm.
Nitro is succeeding, were you guys kind of surprised, or were you expecting it? Because it was like basically leading to a wrestling boom. I mean, it got so popular. Was that surprising to you?
Well, no, it wasn't surprising. The fact was, Eric Bischoff, who is a vice president of CNN, WCW Wrestling, um, it was really interesting because we would be threatened about losing our jobs every week, with the ratings.
Right. You
That
got to
was
win. Yeah.
interesting. You got to make the show good or you're gone.
Yep.
So it was really interesting about that. And but we did a good job. We really did. We started to compete with them, and we started to uh, gain ground in the ratings war, and even won some of the ratings wars at that time. So that was interesting. Hmm.
Oh, big time. Yes. So
Yeah, yeah,
did you like working a guy like Kurosawa, who obviously, Nakanishi, I guess, which is his real name, but I mean, legend in Japan, but that's a different style. I mean, he obviously comes over to the U.S. for a little bit of an excursion. He's more of like that strong style. Is that more of your style? Like as far as pro wrestling, do you like that better? Because he's stiff.
yes. Yes, it was an interesting story about that because actually Kurosawa came from my world. He was an amateur, champion, and he was a silver medalist, I believe. And one of the things, the guys, they get to challenge you and do stuff like that in the back in the dressing room. We went at it once in the dressing room, and Teddy Long
Wow.
was standing by. Yeah, we went at it a little bit in the dressing room. Teddy Long was standing by, and I took him down with ease and just pounced on him a little bit. And so they got to learn about the pit bull. But I was in that world. I was doing things in that world when these guys were in diapers.
Right. Sometimes you got to remind them, hey,
Yeah,
I'm
you
not the
got
guy.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, as a pro wrestler, yeah, the Hulk Hogan, they got the Macho Man, you got the Ric Flairs, you got all of these guys, living on their headlines. Well, in the amateur world, I was those guys doing the real deal.
Yes. Yes. Seemed
So,
like
it,
WCW had, like, a lot of tough guys, like, a lot of shooter guys, like the Steiner
yes,
brothers, Ming, Barbarian.
yes, yes. Ming and Barbarian were my two best friends in pro wrestling, and we respected each other and understood each other. I used to go and hang out with them, and Ming lived in Florida at the time, and Barbarian lived in North Carolina, and I would hang out with these guys, and we were good friends, and they understood me, and I understood them. I understood their toughness, and they understood mine. And I would say that the three of us were the most feared wrestlers back then in that time. Most feared wrestlers among the boys. You know, I really believe that.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah, you don't want. I wouldn't want to, mess with like you guys. You know what I mean? Like the shooters, if you will. I know obviously there's
Yes.
million stories about Ming and bar fights and
Yeah.
ripping people's eyeballs out and stuff like that. Have you ever
Hey,
experienced any of
listen,
that crazy stuff?
it's for real. Those are for real. I've actually been in one with him.
Wow, what the hell happened?
That was in North Carolina, and I can't remember where we were. I think we were. It was North Carolina, though. We were at a show, and we went out afterwards in the bar, and we ended up, how us boys do. We get to
Yep.
drinking and so forth, and we ended up standing back to back, defending our defending our rights, so to speak. But I've been there once or twice with the boys, and um, Barbarian was kind of funny though. He was he was an animal. Barbarian was an animal, but I tell you what, I roomed with him a lot. And when Barbarian got back to the room, you couldn't tell him anything about Mama, Mama.
Hmm.
He would call his wife, and he'd
Yep.
call her Mama, and he'd call Mama, I'm okay, Mama. You know.
Yes. Yes. I don't
Yeah,
get
he
though these
wasn't so
people.
tough.
Oh, wasn't so tough with his wife, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm okay, Mama. I'm doing okay, Mama. You know?
I just don't get these people that want to fight like Ming and Barbarian in a bar. Like, are they that drunk? Are they that crazy? I mean, I can't even
Look, you
imagine.
don't want to fight Ming or Barbarian in a bar.
Yeah.
These guys are the man strength in these guys is incredible. You know, they were tough guys, and they could take on. You know, if it was 13, 14 cops there, they would still have a problem.
Right. And they have no problem like biting or ripping an eyeball out or ripping your nose
Oh
off.
yeah,
I mean,
yep, that was them. Yeah, yeah. And I was the same way, but I was a little more quiet than they were.
right. Yeah.
But I would stand back to back with any one of them.
Love
I would
that.
stand back to back with any one of them. Loved them. Loved them. Yeah.
So when you're in WCW, right? They are wanting to kind of make you a baby face and you're like looking for a manager. Was that your idea or was that something that they wanted to do?
That was something they wanted to do. I totally didn't want to do it. They wanted that. They thought that, like I said, when I'm offset and out in the world, no one believed I was a, heel because I was a, introverted nice guy. And so they said, no one's believing you, man. We got to make him a baby face. So that's what they did. They decided to make me a baby face, and then they were going to put Teddy Long as my manager, which I ended up being with Teddy Long. But they built it up by me asking on every show. I would ask, if so and so would present Bobby the Brain Heenan and different people. Hey, would you manage me? And they
Right.
all turned me down, of course. And then they put me with, you know, um, Teddy Long. So that's how that all happened. And it was real interesting because I really wasn't feeling it as far as being a baby face. I liked being a heel, believe it or not. So that's how all that started, though.
More fun being a heel, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was a lot more fun. Hey, you maggot, you undisciplined one. Hey, did you pay two tickets for that seat? That one, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
So what did you think, like, as far as WCW kicking ass taking names, but the NWO? gets formed and the NWO starts really taking off and around that period of time as well. Did you think that was going to be as big as it was? Like what were your thoughts just on the NWO, cuz it took over wrestling. I mean, man, it took over everything.
That was interesting, and I have to give a lot of credit to Eric Bischoff for creating the NWO. He was a genius as far as that was concerned. And yes, they did take over, and that was really interesting. How you can take, the group of names that were involved in the NWO and promote it that way. Uh, he created a whole nother organization. He created a whole nother thing with the NWO, and that was really interesting, and I enjoyed that.
When you look at your run too, you do get a WCW World Heavyweight title match against Ric Flair. Would you think that's the high point of your run there, getting a world title match against Flair?
Yeah, man. Look, anytime you get to wrestle Ric Flair, that's a high point. He was the name in wrestling, and he was meticulous in his art. He was very good at what he did. And like I said, you could be a broomstick in there with Ric Flair and he could make you look good, and really have an entertaining show. So anytime you get to wrestle a legend like Ric Flair, you better be appreciative
Yes,
of
and
that. Yeah.
you got some world title matches against the Giant too when he was champion. But obviously, he's a bit green there. I mean, he's very. I mean, he's basically a rookie, big time rookie,
Yeah.
and obviously wrestling Flair for the title a little bit different, but still an honor being
Yeah.
getting a title shot.
Yes, it's still an honor to be in the ring with any of those boys. They were there for a reason. They were good at what they did, and like you said, the Giant was a rookie back when I was coming through, but he was still special. Not just because of his size, but he was still a special boy, and he's proven that along the years and so forth. So I appreciated that. I appreciated the Arn Andersons. I know Arn Anderson was the bomb. And when I was coming through the power plant, we had Ole Anderson was one of my trainers. And my first wrestling match was with his son, who was in the power plant. And they took us out to, it was Northern Florida there, and they tested us out there. But I was wrestling his son, Ole Anderson.
Very
So I
cool.
was and Blackjack Mulligan was the head trainer, and he took me under his wing. Blackjack Mulligan, Ole Anderson. We had Jody Hamilton. We had Pistol Pez Watley. All these guys were in the power plant at the time, so I had a lot of influence there with those guys. So I'm really appreciative that they brought me up that way. And Pistol Pez Watley actually told me something that sticks to me this day. He says, "Boy, once they put you on TV, they can't take you off."
And you were on TV a lot. Like I feel like, every show, whether it's Saturday Night Pro, Worldwide Prime, Nitro, you're on pretty much every show. You were on TV a lot.
Yes, I was. And I'm very appreciative of the opportunity and the exposure that I was able to get through pro wrestling. And I'm glad that the hard work that I put in amounted to that. And I'm very thankful. And I'm never above board on it. I'm very thankful for what I was allowed to do in the pro wrestling ranks. And to this day, a few weeks ago, I had my 65th birthday.
Oh, happy
Yeah,
birthday.
yeah, thank you. And after 65 years, I really feel good about what I've been able to do in the pro ranks and the amateur ranks and so forth, and the career that I've had. And that's leading me into, I'm going to take on a project real soon, the Pitbull's memoirs. And we'll be actually writing about my experiences in life, and I've had some very significant and nice experiences that I would like to share with the rest of the world, and that's what I'll be doing real soon here. So, yeah. And at
Nice.
65, I've my life is changing a little bit. I've my first wife passed away, and since then I've met someone who has brought life back to my soul and the love of my life. So I'll be sharing probably the rest of my life with her, and
Nice.
that's really significant to me, and that's what's going on now.
Nice. Love that. Now, as we hit the wind down, we head towards the finish here. Why did you end up leaving WCW? Like, what was the deal? Like, was the contract up, or did you want to leave?
Actually, no, the contract was up, and I'm not sure what really happened in the on the back scene of everything. Um, like I said, they weren't really sure what to do with a guy like me. I don't know what you know what proposals, but I wasn't offered that next contract. So I moved on, but I continued to wrestle, and like I said, Mid Atlantic Wrestling, and did some other things there. But I was okay with that because I had up to that point I've had a great career, not just with pro wrestling. I've made some really good headway in amateur wrestling, and if you read Wikipedia today, you can see that I've done some things that haven't been matched. So that's pretty incredible to me, and I'm really happy with it. So
And hey, you even fought some MMA. You've done some MMA fighting as well in your
yeah,
career.
yes, I did do some MMA, and I did it later on in the years when people thought, "Wow, this guy at 50 years old, I'm still fighting in MMA." And doing a good job at it. So
Right.
I've had some significant things happen there in MMA and all the other ranks. As a matter of fact, there's a movie out called, documentary called Choke. I don't know if you remember that. That's
With
with
Hicks and
Hicks and
Gracie, right?
Gracie.
Yep.
Yes, I was involved in that. I'm in the documentary involved in that. Well, people, I was at WCW at the time, and people didn't realize that I was the real deal. So they thought they were getting a pro wrestler when they invited me to Valley Tudo, you know. But I was the real deal, and I went through the tournament. As a matter of fact, the world kickboxing champion was my first match, and I submitted him in 45 seconds. And
Impressive.
then I went on to compete, and then they realized that this guy is going to make it to Hicks and Gracie, who's on the other side of the bracket. And it was a very controversial match with the Japanese submission fighter, who was a lot smaller than me, but um, they said I submitted in the match, which I didn't. You can see clearly in the match that
Right.
I'm like, what happened? Why'd you stop the match? But my next match would have been Hicks and Gracie. And back in the day, if you beat the guy that the dojo of the person that was over in Japan, if you beat him, you take over his dojo. So I would have taken over Gracie Jiu Jitsu if
Oh
I
my
had
god.
beat him.
Yeah.
I would have been Gracie
Could you have
Jiu
beaten
Jitsu.
him? Could you have beaten him?
Yes, I could have beat him. So that was obvious, but
Maybe
and you
that's
can
why
see it.
maybe that's why they didn't want the Japanese guy beating you. They want to.
Yes, that's why they did what they did in the Japanese match, I believe. But I'm telling the story, but I'll let people who watch it see it for themselves. You can see clearly in the match that I was what happened.
Yeah. Yep.
Why'd you stop the match?
Yeah.
So and maybe that's my ego, maybe that's me, but you judge for yourself. You watch it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What an
Yeah,
interesting, like, career, though. If you I mean, and just life, really. Just look at, like, Marine Corps, like, Greco-Roman wrestling, Valley
yeah,
Tudo, you know what I mean? You're doing MMA, you do pro wrestling, you're wrestling Ric Flair for the WCW world title. I mean, what an interesting
yeah.
career. What a great,
I've,
just a great
I've
career.
had a Yes, thank you. I've had an awesome life. And then in the law enforcement world, I've been on the presidential level of security in the Marine Corps. Um, I've done some things there. And then having the Olympic wrestling career, and then the pro wrestling career, and then the uh, sheriff's office being at a high profile level there. I've had a great and awesome life, and I've always been a protector, and I've always been a security guy. And recently, I found out through my DNA that I'm a 100% Nigerian from the Igbo tribe, and that their significance was being protectors of the people.
Look at that. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So then I found out who I was.
There you go. Awesome.
Yeah. So that's what's going on there.
Before
Yeah.
we
But
before we let you
yeah.
go, do you have social media? Do you do any of that sort of stuff? Do you have that, like, where fans reach out to you? Do you like Twitter and all that other stuff, or no?
Actually, I am in the process of creating. Before we did this interview, I was just in the process of creating that because I'm going to do my memoirs, and I will be creating a website for all of that and so forth. But I will put it out there really soon, but it's not developed yet. So, but it will be. It will be developed. That the Pitbull's memoirs are coming out and so forth, and a podcast. And I will be relating in a podcast some significant areas of my life uh, and so forth. But I'm sorry I don't have more at this point in time, but it'll be
Right.
out shortly.
Yes, yes, we'll get all that out there, and maybe we'll get you back on again. We'll talk more, about what you got going on, just as far as the memoirs and stuff, because it's going to be a lot of stuff. Very cool.
Oh man, I appreciate it, and I'm really thrilled about being able to do this with you, and I'm thankful that I don't know how you found me, but I'm thankful about it, and
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to continuing on with this. Yes, yes.
awesome, Sergeant Craig Pitman. Thank you so much for all the time today. Really appreciate it,
Yes, thank
and that
you.
and that's where I'll cut it. Perfect.
Yes, thank you.